Cecil Stedman has never been killed. He's been threatened, outmaneuvered, and operated in a world full of people who could snap him in half without thinking about it, and he's still here. So who actually has a shot at taking him out, and what would it take? We're going through every serious candidate, ranking them, and figuring out where Cecil's defenses fall apart. Here's the thing about Cecil, he's not a fighter. The man runs the Global Defense Agency from behind a desk inside a bunker, surrounded by technology and heroes and about 40 years of accumulated secrets. Put Cecil in a room with anyone on this list and strip away everything except their bodies, and Cecil is dead every single time. No contest. So asking who could kill Cecil misses the point if you're thinking about it like a strength comparison. Everybody's strong enough. A random guy with a brick is strong enough if you give him access and enough time. Cecil is just a human being. What we should be asking is, who can really get to him? Cecil's defense isn't his body, it's his planning and his information. It's the 17 contingencies he has running at any given moment, the heroes he has on speed dial, the alien technology he's reverse engineered and weaponized, and most importantly, the fact that he almost always knows what's coming before it arrives. He's been playing defense for decades and he's very good at it. That's what makes killing Cecil hard, not his fists, his foresight. So this list has 3 categories for every entry. Physical ability, can they do the deed? Access, can they reach him? And motive, is there a reason strong enough to push them all the way through? We're also going to look at where Cecil's planning breaks down because that's where this gets worth paying attention to. Here's the tier system. S tier means these characters kill Cecil if they decide to. Cecil might have answers, but the answers don't hold. No path to survival. A tier means a strong case. Cecil has defenses that could work, but they're not guaranteed. One bad day, one wrong assumption, and Cecil's done. B tier means it could happen and the danger is genuine, but Cecil wins this matchup more often than not. C tier means longer shots, more credible than they first appear, and worth taking seriously. Starting with Omni-Man at S tier, Nolan Grayson is a full-blooded Viltrumite with thousands of years of combat experience. He killed the entire original Guardians of the Globe by himself in under 10 minutes. These were Earth's top heroes, like individually powerful, collectively formidable, like Nolan went through them alone. Here's the context that matters. Cecil knew, in both the show and the comics, Cecil had intelligence suggesting Omni-Man was a Viltrumite agent, or at minimum had serious suspicions. He didn't sit on that, he made plans. When Nolan revealed himself by killing the Guardians, Cecil activated those plans. He had weapons and countermeasures designed for this exact scenario. None of it stopped Nolan. The only reason Cecil didn't die during that period is that Nolan's mission didn't include killing him. Mark was the mission. Earth's eventual conquest was the mission. Cecil wasn't that important to the plan. Professionally, Nolan and Cecil are natural enemies. One exists to conquer Earth, one exists to defend it. But Nolan never made a point of going after Cecil. Even after Mark fought him and he left Earth, Cecil was still standing. If Omni-Man had decided Cecil needed to die, Cecil would be dead. There's no version of the GDA's resources that stops a Viltrumite who has fully committed to a single kill. The physical gap is too wide and any countermeasures aren't built for someone at Nolan's level, giving maximum effort to one target. The only uncertainty is whether Nolan would ever make that call, and that's complicated given his relationship with Mark, but he absolutely could. Cecil knows it, which is why he works so hard on anti-Viltrumite options in the first place. Next is Thrag, also S tier. Grand Regent of the Viltrumite Empire. The strongest Viltrumite alive, not just in raw power, but in combat experience too. He's the one even other Viltrumites fear. Nolan, as powerful as he is, was wrecked by Thrag. Taking Thrag down in the comics required an extraordinary chain of events and enormous cost, and even then it was barely enough. Does Thrag have a motive to kill Cecil? Not really. Cecil is beneath his notice. He's a human administrator running a planetary defense agency on a world the Viltrumites are already managing. From Thrag's scale, Cecil is a minor variable, but does Cecil have any realistic defense if Thrag shows up and decides he's a problem? No, Cecil's most significant anti-Viltrumite card is the Scourge virus, a biological weapon designed specifically to harm from Viltrumites. That's his nuclear option. But a weapon like that needs specific deployment conditions, and Thrag can kill every carrier before they get in range. He doesn't have to walk into anything controlled. The S tier here is about the ceiling of what Cecil's resources can meaningfully touch. Thrag isn't a chess match, but he's what happens when the board gets flipped before anyone makes a move. Low likelihood, but absolute ceiling. Number 3 is Conquest at B tier. Conquest is a Viltrumite, so you'd expect him to sit right next to Nolan and Thrag. He's ancient, brutal, and has been a weapon of the Empire for longer than most civilizations have existed, but Conquest belongs at B for one reason: he's a blunt instrument. He finds you, he breaks you, and he doesn't have a secondary plan. That plays into Cecil's strengths. Cecil's setup isn't designed for subtle dangers, it's made for things that show up and start breaking stuff. That's Conquest's whole approach. He doesn't have the patience to run a quiet operation around Cecil's perimeter before making a move. He shows up, Cecil knows he's there, and Cecil gets to start running his response before Conquest is anywhere near him. Cecil can call in heroes, deploy countermeasures, and use the time gap to stack defensive layers in real time. Against a danger with no stealth and no strategy beyond sustained aggression, Cecil has the most runway to work with, so why B and not C? Because the defensive layers have to hold. Conquest nearly killed Mark in their fights, and at that point, Mark was already strong. If that kind of sustained pressure works against someone who can fight back, Cecil's response chain is going to break down eventually. Cecil wins this matchup more often than not, but more often than not isn't certainly. Number 4 is Angstrom Levy at a tier. Levy can open portals to parallel dimensions. He can appear at any location on Earth or off it without warning and without using any conventional point of entry. Cecil's physical security assumes danger approach from somewhere. His layers, the GDA agents, biometric access controls, heroes on standby, the surveillance network, are all set up to intercept something moving toward him through the physical world. His bunker is impenetrable because it controls what can come in through normal routes. Levy doesn't use normal routes. He opens a door from a different dimension and walks through it. Every physical layer Cecil has becomes irrelevant the moment the danger doesn't travel through regular space. There's no checkpoint for an interdimensional portal. No screening system catches a door opening in a room that was empty a second ago. This is a genuine gap in how Cecil operates. His contingencies assume dangers have to approach somehow. The caveat, Levy's motive against Cecil isn't that strong. His obsession is with Invincible. The grudge is personal, and it's about Mark. Cecil is an important figure, connected, powerful, but not the face Levy is fixated on. Could Levy decide that dismantling the GDA hurts Mark? Yes. Is Cecil his first call? Probably not. That's the only thing keeping this at A instead of S. The ability isn't in question. The access problem doesn't exist for him. The motive just isn't aimed at Cecil the way it is at Mark. If that ever changes, Cecil has very few good options. 5th is the Mahler twins at B tier. The Mahlers are worth paying attention to because the physical danger, super strength, extreme durability, genius level intelligence is almost secondary to what makes them genuinely dangerous, which is that they know how Cecil operates. The Mahler twins have worked with the GDA. They've been inside his operation, watched how he manages problems, seen the edges of how he thinks and where his priorities land. They're both deeply intelligent, like not in a background character way, but in a built significant technology way, and they've had time to study what they've seen. Pairing that inside knowledge with the physical ability to execute a plan is something different from a powerful adversary that has no idea what it's walking into. The Mahlers know some of what they're walking into. There's also the redundancy problem. There are 2 of them, both claim to be the original. That copy paradox is legitimately unresolved, but from Cecil's perspective, the tactical issue is that neutralizing one doesn't close the danger. The other is still out there, still smart, and now personally motivated in a way they weren't before. So why B? Because Cecil knows them too. The knowledge runs both ways. He's had time to build countermeasures for the Mahlers, knowing exactly what they're capable of. In a planning arms race between Cecil and the Mahler twins, if Cecil has deeper resources and more time in the seat, he probably wins. The B tier is because probably isn't certainly. If they commit fully and catch Cecil on a wrong wrong assumption. This becomes a serious matchup. Number 6 is Rexplode at C tier. Stick with this one for a second. Rex is C tier, but not because the threat isn't credible. It's because of a ceiling in Rex's character, and getting there means being honest that the setup is better than people give it credit for. Rex has inside access. He's been a GDA asset. He's been used by Cecil, manipulated, deployed, treated as a resource rather than a person. He has legitimate grievances, the kind that come from finding out someone you trusted was running you like a variable in their equation, and his power is dangerous up close. Rex can charge objects with explosive force and detonate them. He doesn't need a weapon to be armed. He can touch a wall next to Cecil and blow the room. He can make the floor into a bomb. He can make a handshake a bomb in a scenario where Rex has proximity to Cecil and has made the decision to use it. Things don't end well for Cecil. The ability is there. The access has existed. The motive is legitimate. The problem is Rex himself. Yeah, Rexplode, even at his most cynical and worn down, is someone who channels his anger into fighting for something rather than against someone. His arc, especially in the comics, where he dies making a heroic sacrifice against conquest, tells you exactly how he's wired. He's not built for cold assassination. He doesn't quietly go after the people who wronged him. He picks a side and he bleeds for it. Cecil has wronged him. But Rex's response is resentment and tension, not a plan. C tier. The pieces exist. Rex just wouldn't put them together this way. Number 7 is Adam Eve at A tier. This is the most underrated entry on the list. Adam Eve can manipulate matter and energy at the molecular level. She can rearrange atoms, take apart structures, create things out of other things, and reshape her immediate environment in ways that are almost impossible to plan around. At full power, which the show has gotten closer to depicting than the early comics did, the gap between what she can do and what can stop her is significant. Apply that to Cecil's situation. All of Cecil's physical defenses run on conventional assumptions. He has heroes to call, weapons to deploy, barriers to raise. Every layer assumes the danger is working within normal physical rules. Hitting things, breaking things, shooting things. You stop that kind of adversary by putting something stronger in the way. Eve doesn't have to engage with that system. She doesn't have to punch through a wall to guess she can rearrange what the wall is made of. She doesn't have to beat a hero standing between her and Cecil. Yeah, she can change the situation before that fight starts. She operates at a level that Cecil's entire defense setup wasn't built to handle. And then there's the most uncomfortable part of this entry. A human being is made of atoms. The motive is worth getting right. In the comics, Eve's origin ties to government weapons programs. She was engineered to be a weapon, and the systems that created her overlap with the world Cecil operates in. He spent decades using people, and Eve was literally designed to be used before she was old enough to have a say. Whether Cecil had direct involvement depends on the issue, but the resentment toward the structures that shaped her life is documented. In the show, it's less about her origins and more about watching Cecil manipulate the people she cares about. Different entry point, same grievance. His contingencies don't cover someone who can interact with matter itself. That's not a blind spot he can easily close. Number 8 is Robot. Rudy at a tier. Rudy is essentially Cecil, but smarter, more physically capable in the comics, and without the limits Cecil at least officially operates within. That's what makes this matchup different from everything else on the list. It's not strength against planning, it's planning against planning. Like two people thinking in the same language going after each other. The ability question matters here in a way it doesn't with the Viltrumites. Show Rudy is in a cloned human body with enhanced capabilities, physically more than Cecil, but nowhere near the Viltrumite ceiling. The true danger isn't physical. It's the same thing Cecil uses: information, layered contingencies, and a willingness to make moves other people won't make because they're too worried about how it looks. Comic Rudy, at the scale he eventually reaches, isn't coming after Cecil with his hands. He's coming after him the way Cecil comes after everyone else. And the case that Rudy is better at that game is hard to dismiss. His intelligence spans multiple areas. His pattern recognition is extraordinary, and he's willing to play the very long game, which is exactly the kind of danger Cecil's setup is hardest to guard against. Fast dangers, Cecil handles. Someone who has been preparing just as long as Cecil has is a different problem entirely. Cecil's edge is the depth of resources he's built up over decades, contacts and infrastructure that don't appear overnight. His weakness is that Rudy can think around him, and in a pure strategy matchup, better thinking beats older infrastructure. In the show, Rudy hasn't reached that endpoint yet, but the direction he's heading reads the same. He's already shown he'll make ruthless calls. He already sees people as variables. The path is clear, even if the destination isn't on screen yet. I'd give Rudy the edge in the comics because he got there. He ran the table in a way Cecil never did. Number 9 is invincible. Mark Grayson, at a tier. Physical ability, settled, a half Viltrumite who punches through tanks and survives hits from beings who can crack planets, doesn't have a capability problem with a human target. Access, also not what we should be focusing on. Mark and Cecil have a sustained working relationship across both the comics and the show. Strained, increasingly contentious, built on mistrust that grows over time, but ongoing. Mark has been inside the GDA. He knows where Cecil works. Cecil almost certainly has security measures calibrated for Mark, but measures designed to stop a Viltrumite hybrid is an extraordinary bar to clear. The motive is well documented in the comics. Mark and Cecil's relationship falls apart in a sustained, very deliberate way over the course of the series. Cecil keeps secrets. He uses people without disclosure or consent. He makes decisions that directly affect Mark's life and the people Mark loves without asking or explaining. When Mark finds out about the Reaniman project in which Cecil was using deceased criminals' bodies to create cybernetic soldiers, it's one of several breaking points. The confrontation is ugly. Mark hits Cecil, that's in the comics, worth repeating. Mark, who is careful about not hitting regular people at full strength, physically strikes Cecil Stedman. The restraint he keeps toward humans starts to look conditional the further Cecil pushes to be upfront rather than confident. I'm not going to state that Mark kills Cecil in the comics as an established fact because I'm not certain enough of the exact circumstances. Hiding it and getting it wrong in front of an audience that knows this series is worse than being honest about it. What the comics clearly establish is that the relationship reaches a breaking point, the motive is documented, and Mark has already shown in canon that his usual rules around Cecil stop applying when Cecil goes far enough. What keeps this from S tier is Cecil's prep for Mark. Cecil knows him better than almost anyone. He has combat records, behavioral patterns, every fight Mark's been in. The people who shape his decisions, he'd see this coming and he'd have something ready. But here's the problem with that. Cecil's plans are drawn around the Mark he usually deals with. The Mark who hesitates, the Mark who pulls punches, the Mark who, even when furious, doesn't want to hurt the people he's fighting. Or a Mark who has crossed that line, who has made the decision and is past the emotional threshold, is a completely different problem. And that gap between who Cecil planned for and who Mark becomes when Cecil pushes him far enough is where the danger lives, a tier. Not because it's guaranteed, because it's credible, it's grounded in the source material, and Cecil has a clear blind spot for the version of Mark who stops playing by the rules Cecil designed his answers around. The last entry is Cecil himself at S tier. Every entry on this list has been about an outside danger, someone who decided Cecil is the problem, but the most consistent threat to Cecil Stedman across both the comics and the show isn't any one person on this list. It's the operation Cecil runs. Look at who's on this list. Omni-Man was recruited and trusted inside Cecil's world. The Mahler twins were GDA assets. Rex worked inside the machine. Angstrom Levy operates in the world the GDA is supposed to manage. Eve is tangled up in the same system Cecil is part of. Rudy started as one of the heroes Cecil had access to. Mark was Cecil's most important asset for years. Every person on this list has been in some relationship with Cecil's operation. That's not a coincidence. That's what the operation does. It pulls people in, uses them, and keeps moving. The list of people who've come out the other side with grievances keeps growing. Cecil stays ahead because he knows more than everyone else, but every person he uses is another person who eventually pieces together what was done to them. The more complete the picture becomes, the more dangerous they become. He can't monitor every variable forever. There are too many now. The highness The piece that gets overlooked most is this. Cecil can't fully account for someone willing to die for it. His whole model runs on predicting self-interested behavior. He understands people who want something: power, revenge, safety, recognition. He can map those motivations and plan around them. What he can't easily account for is someone who doesn't care what happens to them after Cecil is dead. Once you take self-preservation out of the equation, most of Cecil's leverage disappears. The deterrents assume the other person wants to survive the attempt. The plans assume someone who hesitates when the cost gets high enough. Someone who has already accepted the cost is operating completely outside the model Cecil's planning is designed to address. That's the deeper vulnerability. Not any one person on this list, but the weight of what Cecil has done and the odds that at some point one of those decisions produces someone with nothing left to lose. Cecil is brilliant, probably the most strategically capable human being in the Invincible universe, but his operation generates enemies as a natural side effect of running, and he's been running it for a very long time. Here's what the whole ranking tells us. Cecil doesn't get killed because someone is stronger than him. Everyone is stronger than him. That's never been the point. He becomes vulnerable when his information edge closes, when someone bypasses the core assumption his planning rests on, when the person he's dealing with stops behaving the way his model predicted they would. He's not hard to kill because he's powerful. He's hard to kill because he almost always has the longest head start in the room, and almost always is doing a lot of work there. At some point, the stack falls, and the fact that Cecil almost certainly knows that is what makes him one of the best characters in the whole series. Who do you think has the best shot? Drop it in the comments. And if we missed someone you think belongs on this list, let us know. Subscribe for more breakdowns like this one.